So to live among God's faithful people, it's never been more clear to me that we are inextricably bound to each other. Life in true isolation is not just undesirable, it's impossible. And that feels extremely strange to say right now, like many of you alone in my house. And like all of you, it's been almost 12 months since I had a friend over for dinner, casually caught up with colleagues over a cup of coffee, or debriefed the morning swim while getting ready for work in the locker room. Having lunch with my parents or visiting a friend for the weekend is now the stuff of a previous life. And Good Shepherd, it's been almost a year since we last gathered in our sanctuary. I'll be honest, the dark and cold and Zoom are starting to get to me. I feel isolated and sometimes I feel alone. And I don't mean this to be a sob story. I'm grateful I'm not actually living alone. Thank God I've got another person with whom I'm allowed to have dinner and coffee and who's even willing to help me process my thoughts on swimming. If you asked, I'm pretty sure he could tell you all about it by now. Gratitude aside, I still feel isolated. I feel alone, and I suspect many of you do too. But here's the thing, I'm not at all isolated. I'm not even a little bit alone. And I know you think you know where I'm going with this right now. So I'm going to be upfront with you. This is not going to be a beautiful poetic statement about God's presence in my life. No offense, God. And I promise you it's not going to be a thoughtful reflection on the value of human connection via the miracle of technology. No. When I say I'm not alone, I'm not talking about Zooms or YouTube or phone calls or my one pandemic partner or even chilly gatherings around an outdoor fire. When I say I'm not isolated, and none of us are, I mean it very practically. Connection and interdependence are fundamental facts of human existence. We know that our lives intersect with thousands of other lives millions of times a day in a billion mundane ways. When my oven stops working, I call someone to come fix it. It's winter in Iowa, and I would not be eating kale or anything green for that matter without the network of humans that grow, package, pick, transport, and unpack it for me. And as folks in Texas are horribly aware right now, it takes many, many, many people to clear roads, maintain the electricity, and to make the internet work, and the gas and the water, and to fix all those things once they're broken. Our very breath right now may upend or end the lives of those around us. And I don't feel like this interdependence is a new concept for me. Deadly airborne viruses are, yes, but not this reminder that we're not just in it for ourselves. Even pre-pandemic, it's something I think about a lot. Like many of you here have done, and many of you are working on doing, I affirmed my baptism. I made a public profession of my faith, and I promised God and my community I would live among God's faithful people. And like most of you, I don't think that has ever stopped for me at the walls of the church. Before every breath became a communal risk to weigh, I thought in terms of interdependence. I took my role in my family and congregation, community, state, and nation seriously. I served on church committees and council, organized community 5Ks, and ran a broomball listserv. I made conscientious consumption choices. I protested. I wrote to elected officials who represented me. I voted. And like the good Lutheran I am, I thought, well, this is my response. This is my response to God's grace. This is how I show God gratitude. And like the good Lutheran I am, I was wrong. Confirmation students, I have a confession to make. This week, as I prepared for our reflection tonight, I realized I don't remember anything from my own confirmation service, except that I had a really great new skirt that I got to wear for the occasion. So when I opened my ELW to read through the affirmation of baptism liturgy, it struck me that confirmation is not about picking out a special Bible verse. It's not about great skirts. So I read the service, and this is what happens when Christians affirm our baptism. We're prayed over. We renounce the devil, sin, powers of this world, and forces that defy God. We profess our faith. And then we're asked if we intend to continue in the covenant God made with us in holy baptism, to continue in the covenant. And I've been to enough Sunday school classes and taught enough Sunday school to remember that covenant means promise. To continue in the covenant, to continue in God's promise to live among God's faithful people. God's promise to live among God's faithful people. And it struck me that this is not our response to God's gift. This is God's gift, to live among one another, to depend on one another, to be bound to one another, to be the breath of life for one another, not just for the good of the other, for our own good, not as self-sacrificing, saving, helping things we do to pay God back, not for the sake of the other, for our own sake. Because God promises us our own rich life when we live among God's faithful people. God gives us the joy of confirmation classes and council meetings, the humor of a few extra questions and some parliamentary confusion during the annual meeting, the rich harmony of the person sitting in the pew behind us who cannot carry a tune, the frustrations and squabbles and figuring it out together, the work of living together, and the joy in the work of living together. We are more connected than ever. And God willing, we'll get to do the hard, joyful work of living faithfully among one another in person again soon. Until then, we have Zoom. We are inextricably bound. We are God's gift to one another. Thanks be to God.